One handshake, one closed door, and a secret Rolapp still won't let leave that room. Whatever got said about Rory died the second that latch clicked shut. Behind closed doors, it's decaying right now. Here's the PGA Tour bombshell. Not the sentence spoken aloud, but the one deliberately choked back. A single shard Rory exposes hangs in the air, sharp and unfinished. The rest? Buried alive. You smother a private conversation like that for one reason. It draws blood. Watch the man himself. Golf's reigning Masters champion has nearly ghosted the American game. 6 starts since spring. A $20 million showcase shrugged off. His schedule bleeds thinner by the month. After the Open, he signaled the drift is permanent. Something's ending here. You can feel it. Rewind to late June. Rolapp pulled Rory aside the morning of the tour's grand reveal, hours after the star had set fire to it. That blow was merciless. At Shinnecock, he branded the shiny new lower tier a glorified minor league event, warning proud tournaments rot the instant sponsors quit paying. Fans who want the truth beneath the spin? Subscribe now because we crack it first. Let's unpack the silence that could haunt this tour forever. The detonation everyone already watched at Shinnecock was never loose talk. Peel it back and Rory had exposed the tour's own blueprint, stripped of every coat of marketing gloss. He studied the machine his bosses spent a year building, then told the watching world it rang hollow. There sits the genuine exposure, aired in front of every reporter on the property, well before a single door in Connecticut ever eased shut. Consider what he actually tore the wrapping off. Come 2028, the PGA Tour means to fracture itself into 2 separate worlds. The upper one, penciled in as the championship series gathers between 23 and 24 tournaments, the majors, the playoffs, and the fattest purses circling $20 million apiece. Below it waits a second track, sketched as the Challenger Series, running roughly 20 events worth $4 million each. Merit is meant to govern the traffic between them. Win twice down in the basement, and a mid-season promotion hauls you upstairs. The reverse punishes any elite name who falters, with a trap door waiting to drop him into the tier beneath. That dividing wall is where the design turns cold. Each world keeps its own points list sealed off from its neighbor. A golfer bolted to one track cannot casually stroll into the other for a week's paycheck. Tiger Woods chaired the committee behind the whole scheme, lending it a legend's weight. Rolapp, meanwhile, pocketed the commissioner's title on that identical afternoon, poised to succeed Jay Monahan once the calendar rolls into January. Impressive staging, punctured only by the sport's most recognizable face, having already tagged the lower half, a feeder tour in fancy dress. One caveat rides along with all of it. Nothing here is locked. Championship and Challenger remain working titles, and the finer print stays unsettled until the current season expires. Even so, the silhouette is plain, and the dread stirring beneath it is unmistakable. Rolapp arrived as the tour's first-ever chief executive carrying a tidy 3-word creed: parity, scarcity, simplicity. On paper, the 2-tier redesign honors each of those ideals, thinning the clutter so casual viewers can track a cleaner narrative. Look harder, though, and Rory's objection gnaws at the scarcity plank most of all. Fewer meaningful stops translates into a real shortage of playing opportunities, and that squeeze has shadowed every reform since the signature event experiment began. The arithmetic of access cuts to the marrow of it. Full championship membership is set to open around 130 spots, trimmed from the roughly 160 the top tour carries today. Fold in the challenger fields, which stretch as wide as 144 players, and the tour insists the combined machine will still serve well beyond 250 professionals. Detractors fire back that a flattering head count means little once the richest rooms shrink and the barriers between them harden into concrete. Pull back, and the sweep of it lands as the boldest structural gamble the tour has attempted in decades. The much-maligned signature event model, all limited fields and vanished weekend cuts, gets scrapped in the bargain. Rising in its place is a crisper hierarchy built to hand fans clear stakes and partners obvious value. That ambition is real, and slices of it may genuinely land. Rory's warning merely drags the uncomfortable question out from under the optimism. Rebuild the house this aggressively, and how many honest professionals end up stranded outside when the walls go up? Plenty of insiders quietly share his reading, even if none will gamble it into a live microphone. Squint at the two-track structure, and it echoes the latter. Golf already runs between its headline circuit and its developmental one, merely shaved to fewer rungs. Tournament directors bracing for a second-tier stamp have begun voicing an awkward worry. Why funnel serious cash into an event the public will dismiss as the undercard? The Canadian Open handed that anxiety a face. Rory has hoisted its trophy twice, yet a national championship of real lineage could soon slip beneath the marquee, prestige bleeding out season by season. That sponsor money warning he floated, stature evaporating the moment a backer refuses a $30 million check, wasn't reckless noise. It named the machinery the glossy pitch works hard to hide. Here the tail stops orbiting schedules and starts circling a man. Rory McIlroy did not wander into this brawl as some detached bystander. A seat on the Player Advisory Council once carried his name. He served across the policy board through the ugliest chapter of golf's civil war, then surrendered the post entirely. Across that whole fight, he played the shield, the lone marquee star willing to stand at the podium and absorb incoming fire repeatedly while Alev Golf peeled his rivals away with bottomless money. Listen to him today, though, and the reversal stuns. In his telling, the pre-live tour hummed along perfectly well. The spending frenzy that chased it he now waves off as a false economy, a spasm of fright that ballooned purses and choked fields to no durable end, engineered to repel a menace that has since lost most of its bite. Decode the sentiment, and it reads like a confession whispered in plain sight. They detonated a working system to win a war already smoldering out on its own. That ranks as a savage admission for a former board member to speak aloud. Reforms he once guarded with his own reputation, he recasts now as a costly overcorrection. And the executive left steering, the wreckage happens to be the identical man who ushered him into that sealed room a week later. The slide surfacing on his scorecards lends the words, extra freight. Not one of his outings since Augusta has produced a top 5 finish, a barren run that would rattle any journeyman, let alone a reigning Masters champion. He has drifted so far down the calendar that he now flirts with missing the 15-event floor the tour asks of its full members. Ordinarily, that shortfall bites hard. In his case, murmurs suggest the tour will simply usher him through, since 30 career victories long ago bought him a lifetime card and the deference trailing it. His own mouth frames the retreat as deliberate rather than accidental. He has made scant secret of craving fewer starts on American soil, and a lighter overall load as the seasons pile up. A golfer quietly grading his own exit ramp hardly sounds like someone itching to grind through a 2-tier gauntlet chasing promotion. Dwell on that contradiction a beat. A player who can scarcely be moved to meet the minimum doubles as the loudest critic of where the whole enterprise is heading. Enormous influence and shrinking appetite share the same body, and that pairing quietly rattles an organization built around his likeness. Broadcast deals, marquee pairings, and the casual viewer's curiosity all lean harder on his presence than the tour would ever confess in daylight. Weigh his dissent against the other titan lashed to this plan. Woods didn't merely chair the committee. He stood at Rolapp's side at the reveal and hailed the moment as a real thrill for the game. 2 icons, 1 blueprint, wildly opposite verdicts. Woods reads it as progress worth signing his name to. To McIlroy, that same structure quietly hollows out the middle class of professional golf. A rift that wide between golf's biggest names tells you the redesign sits nowhere near the settled triumph the tour wants it to resemble. Rolapp, for his part, refused to bite in front of the cameras. No wounded rebuttal escaped him. A counterpunch aimed back at his most valuable star never arrived. He owned the private conversation with a shrug and a faint smile, then pressed the entire storm flat beneath one neat phrase. A single tour housing 2 compelling series. Arithmetic turned into his anchor. 47 events crowd the schedule today, he noted, and the fresh architecture guards that very number, tending the same couple hundred players as before. The lower tier, he vowed, will pull up at venues fans already recognize and pay respectable money to active professionals, not career minor leaguers. A universe apart, he argued, from the developmental grind Rory had summoned as a slur. Layer in the reshaped postseason, retention and relegation carried into the following year, fresh recognition for the season-long points leader, a jolt of match play threaded through the finale. and the scale of the overhaul sharpens further. A yearly Q school endures as one doorway, feeding a last-chance route into the challenger ranks. Nothing about the apparatus feels careless. Every gear turns with evident intent, which is exactly why his outward calm rings a shade too smooth. That was a chief executive buffing a hairline crack before the lens could catch it widening. Study the choreography, too, and the private meeting looks less like a courtesy than containment on a stopwatch. The sit-down landed on the very morning of the grand unveiling, hours before Rolapp would stride on stage to sell his vision to the golf world. Clearing the sport's loudest dissenter off the board first reads as strategy, not coincidence. Nobody hauls a man into a closed room over a remark they truly wave off as harmless. Should his interest keep cooling, the tour inherits a puzzle no slogan can solve. The face it markets hardest would be drifting from the marquee by choice, right as a fragile new structure needs its stars to sell the story. A model built on meritocracy still relies on star power to pull in eyeballs, and no active player commands attention like McIlroy. Losing his hunger, even while keeping him nominally on the roster, bleeds color from the very product Rolapp is racing to launch. So the sealed exchange counts for far less than the trajectory framing it. Whatever those two men traded, no hushed reassurance rewrites a public verdict handed down by the sport's biggest name. The real headline was never one whispered summit in Connecticut. It is the compass heading of Rory's entire career, and lately that arrow points steadily toward the door. The kid who once bled for this tour has curdled into its sharpest in-house skeptic, poking holes in the blueprint while flashing his face less with each passing month. Rolapp can recite his slogan until the syllables dissolve into static. The question he cannot spin his way around bites harder. Does the player his whole product rests upon still want a place in either of the two worlds he just conjured? That doubt is precisely what the press conference labored to bury behind a closed door, and it flatly refuses to stay down. If this is the golf coverage you have been chasing, you're the sort that claws past polished statements and trails the tension to wherever it genuinely leads, then handle one small thing before you drift off. Tap subscribe, flick the bell alive, and settle in close because the fallout from this rupture has barely begun, and every fresh twist surfaces here ahead of the pack. Then tell us straight down in the comments, is Rory McIlroy the last honest voice left on tour, or a fading legend slowly turning his back on the game that crowned him? Drop your verdict below, and we will meet you in the very next one.